New York City's got a housing crisis.
No surprise here, but $100,000 does not get you very far in New York City.
There is definitely an affordable housing crisis.
My original rent was $2,250. If I want to renew the rent, it will be $4,395.
Honestly, unless you're making about $150K, I'd say you can't really live comfortably.
80% of my salary goes to rent alone.
This crisis has been decades in the making.
And believe it or not, this barren landscape behind me could be the solution, but nobody's allowed to live here. All right, check this out. We've got some development right there, but the rest of this is completely empty. There's nothing going on over here. Look at this car, it's absolutely messed up. I think after they change the tires though, it'll be all right. That's probably why it's at the flat fix. So this area full of tire shops, this is about 13 city blocks, and it's been underdeveloped since the 60s. They tried 10 years ago to develop it, but they haven't for some reason. And once you find out why that is, it's gonna blow your mind and make you feel like maybe they need to get it together around here. This stretches almost 2/3 of a mile. Nothing but brand new BMWs, laundry baskets, storage, auto repair, and New York City state inspection. Now there's two reasons why developing this is a good idea. Obviously, it's not being used to its fullest potential. And second, it is zoned as light manufacturing. This is America, we don't make anything. No offense to B&H restaurant and equipment. Also, it's been projected that over the next 10 years, New York City needs about 500,000 apartments, or none of us are gonna be able to live here affordably.
By the way, that goal of 500,000 new units of housing favored by the mayor and others during the next decade would be almost 150,000 more units than was built during the last 2 decades. So this pace of building has not been seen in the city since the 60s and would mean a lot of rapid change to a lot of neighborhoods.
And this is obviously gonna be one of those neighborhoods. They're talking about putting in 4,000 new homes. 1,500 of those would be affordable homes. 2,500 would be market rate. And right now, nobody lives here. And the way that would work is new constructions like this one would get built, but a portion of the units would be designated affordable. The rest could be rented for any price. And other than this construction site, there's really zero activity. Again, this is light manufacturing. The buildings here have very strange rules about what they can and can't be. And this is an oasis of forgotten opportunity. Now this neighborhood, it might not look like much, but there's actually a lot going on a couple of blocks on either side of where we are right now. On the other side of this hole, you can actually see some of the buildings in Clinton Hill. It's nice in Clinton Hill. We're also really close to public transportation. That's actually the subway behind me, and there's a stop just a couple of blocks that way, plus you can get the Long Island Railroad over at Atlantic Avenue. And that's over by the Barclays Center, where they have basketball, concerts, all kinds of fun things. Back in 2013, plans were first brought up to transform this part of town. But as you can see, those plans never amounted to anything. And there's really no logical reason for it. Like, why is there this cleaners here and that's it? And literally right down the street, you have apartments and you have a new building. But before we get into the genius reasons why nothing is allowed to happen here, even though it seems to be happening everywhere else, you have to understand the violent history this neighborhood has. And it's not really apparent until you start digging. Probably wondering what could be more violent than an empty green field, and the answer to that is nothing. And this was the site of one of the largest battles in America's war for independence, and guess what? America lost this one. Right now, it's a beautiful stretch of land, very quiet, very peaceful, but don't kid yourselves, this was a field of doom. And in the battle that unfolded here, the British defeated the Continental Army, and they had to retreat this way towards Manhattan. It doesn't even feel like we're in New York City. We could be literally anywhere right now. If you were to have apartments near this, the location would be one of the best in the city. There's this massive outdoor running track, people bike on it, people run on it, and if you don't live near a park like this, you've probably never experienced how nice it is to enjoy yourself in a backyard full of thousands of strangers who you'll probably never see again because it's New York. Right now, we are literally 2 blocks north of all those tire shops, and this area of town is completely different, and this is what things could look like if they ever push through their plans. Supermarkets, there's the C train station, and you've got little cafes. Totally different. And what's really interesting about this part of town is that it's got a strange history of its own right around the corner from all that manufacturing. This part of town has always been residential. In fact, it was once looked to by wealthy workers in Manhattan who didn't particularly want to live in Manhattan. And that's kind of the same thing today. I mean, all the noise, all the honking, all the traffic that you have in Manhattan, that's absolutely nothing like this part of town. Now it's time for a slight reality check. That tire factory, that's not gonna look like this, ever. But you've got thriving residential communities right around the corner, and expanding the residential aspects of this whole area would be in line with what has been happening here for quite a long time. It's had its ups, it's had its downs, but it's always been allowed to change with the times. And parts of the neighborhood now look exactly the same as they did hundreds of years ago. Which is why it's so insane that nothing of significance has been allowed to take place over by the factories and oil change places.
That's the whole question.
You think it's gonna be at someone's expense?
Of course, because you know what it is? It displaces a lot of people because the prices now, when you think about apartment, which used to be in Brooklyn right here, would be between 1,000 to 1,200. Now that same apartment is about 2,500, 3,000.
I guess the interesting thing about this area of Atlantic Avenue is it's all barbed wire and tire shops. There's no apartments there at all. What I thought was interesting about it was the plan is 4,000 apartments, 2,500 will be market rate, but 1,500 will be affordable. Perhaps that's different than maybe a neighborhood where you've already got buildings and you tear them down and put in a bunch of billionaires, right? I guess it's different, maybe? I don't know.
So when it comes to that rent, like rent stabilized and rent affordable housing, right? So they only give them a certain amount of years, and afterwards they destabilize the apartment. So basically, okay,
So you're saying it would have to be forever?
Yeah, it would be have to something that's affordable for New Yorkers could afford to live in.
You got a business people should know about?
Sure, BK Halal. BK Halal, 411 Utica Avenue. It's halal.
Halal? Awesome. How you doing? Thank you. I appreciate that. This is the eastern corner of the redevelopment zone. You can see there's nothing over here. And then over here we've got buildings, we've got the train station. We are back in civilization. And the only new stuff over here are things like this storage unit. And part of the reason there are so many storage units is because land that had no use because of restrictive zoning like this right here could only be turned into a storage unit or some other type of warehouse. And most of what you're allowed to have here has to be like these dinky little 2-story deals. And if you want to build a new 2-story building, it's illegal for it to be anything other than light manufacturing. And another odd requirement is that whatever you do decide to construct over here has to have plenty of parking. It's like the neighborhood is designed for you to drive up, park, buy something, and then go back to wherever you came from. And what's interesting is the only businesses over here that are doing well are the auto-related businesses. And the Nadina Industrial Corporation, that's a big building, 1-story. Auto body, 1-story, cleaners, 1-story. Look, here on the corner, you have a renovated 2-story building, and look at that, it is for rent. They're probably hoping to get some kind of business in here. You can't live in it. If this could have been an apartment building, everything here would be rented. And you know where you don't see a for rent sign? All of the apartment buildings down this way. But as I mentioned earlier, even what's going on with this building could change. The mayor's plan to build 500,000 new housing units, part of that does include changing what you can and can't do around here. The new plans, if enacted, would allow construction of buildings that are taller than 2 stories and are residential. And the neighborhood would transition to what is considered mixed use. You would still have commercial stuff on the ground floor, but then above that, everything else would be people living. And again, many of the apartments that just don't exist right now, they would be pegged as affordable housing units. And if you have businesses at street level, people will still have a reason to come here, do shopping, buy stuff, whatever. If you were to only have apartments, the neighborhood wouldn't necessarily be pedestrian friendly. Just like people have no reason to come here now, they wouldn't have any reason to come here after they were already home. It would still kind of have this desolate feeling to it at certain parts of the day, certain hours of the day. Over here you can get a good look inside one of these warehouses. This is definitely active and definitely busy. Out in front, you can see they got a shipping container here so they're taking delivery of something. But just think, you could potentially have restaurants, you could have cafes, you could have boutiques like you have in other neighborhoods. There would be stuff going on. I mean, this gutter is pretty exciting, but maybe things would improve. Now, for context, over there's Atlantic Avenue. This is the car wash alley. There's a little two-story. And look, right over here, someone was allowed to make something. So you have a new building, and at the ground level, you still have commercial. This is actually going to be a bank. There's a new city bike installation, a Shake Shack, and even buildings that don't get changed, like this one over here, have new things like a grocery store beneath them. Now, personally, I'm not really a fan of these modern new development type buildings. I much prefer New York's older buildings that still have their soul and the souls of everyone who used to live there trapped inside. I'm a sucker for creepy quaintness. Look at that. But on the other side of these buildings, we don't have the new stuff, we don't have the old stuff, we have nothing. So here's an interesting post on Reddit about exactly what we're talking about, and the comments seem relatively favorable. This one says, "Love to see it. This part of the city has been a barren wasteland for no reason, despite the fact that it is right near transit and surrounded north and south by great communities. This is promising news. I'll reserve judgment until we see if the city can deliver, but this is definitely cause for cautious optimism." This abandoned building is actually particularly interesting. It's definitely abandoned, but if you take a look at the exterior, these are relatively new doors. This is not old. And look, this was recently repainted. Unfortunately for the owners of that building, there's a long review process. It takes about a year for them to figure out if the mayor's plan can actually happen. First, they gotta knock this stuff down. Then they gotta rebuild. Housing and preservation gets involved. They start looking around. It just takes longer. The newest thing here is another parking lot. What's up, man? And then across the street, again, more wasted potential. Oh, that's kind of neat. You got a little woodworking place over here. This looks like a furniture showroom of some kind. This, I don't know what's going on here. More barbed wire. I love this. Event space, commercial, warehouse, now leasing. Come get it. But hey, I could be wrong. Maybe it would be bad for things to change here. Maybe this is how it should always be. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything. I will see you in the next video.